Everyone thought he was a lonely orphan, but his life changes when his childhood crush turns out to be a super dangerous spy and marries him. Asano was a happy young boy, but everything changed one day when his entire family got killed in a tragic car accident. He was the only one who was able to survive with scars and bandages. This scares him so much that he refuses to make any friends because he can't bear to see them get hurt. The one person who decides to stick by him is his childhood friend Mutsumi Yozakura, who is the only person he ever talks to. Several years have passed by since then, and they have both entered high school, but even after a month of being in the class, he refuses to make any friends. A small group of 3 guys constantly ask him to hang out and to be friends, but he keeps rejecting them every single day, whereas Mutsumi has gotten friendly with everyone and has become a high school idol who is every guy's crush. She walks over to Asano and sits down with him to eat food and tells him to go out with the boys sometimes as they seem friendly, but Asano refuses to make any friends and instead turns it around, claiming that if she wants to be so friendly, why didn't she go out with the 3rd year who confessed his love for her? She tells him that she was not interested and takes out her lunchbox, but just as she was about to feed him, Hiza, who is the vice principal of the school, intercepts the bite and starts eating it. Asano is surprised as he never heard him coming, while an annoyed Mutsumi tells him to go away. He tells her that he can't stop himself from having her tasty home-cooked food, but decides to leave before telling Asano to meet him in his chambers after school. Later that day, Asano heads over to his office, confused about why he wants to meet with him. He enters the room and is greeted by Hiza, who has prepared tea and asks him to sit down. Asano is extremely uncomfortable because of how close Hiza is sitting, but is shocked when Hiza starts asking about Mutsumi and why is he so close to her. He starts feeling weird, while Hiza starts showing him pictures of Mutsumi ever since she was a 3-year-old child, which is very weird as they have only known Hiza for a month. He continues telling Asano about how hard it is to keep boys off of her, and how he had to beat the crap out of the 3rd-year guy before he promised never to look towards Mutsumi again. Alarm bells start ringing in Asano's head when suddenly Hiza takes out a knife and puts it at Asano's throat in a swift movement, telling him to say his prayers. When everything seemed lost, a white-haired girl enters the room through the window, stopping him and uses a flashbang to escape alongside Asano. He wakes up a while later in the evening and finds himself surrounded by a bunch of unfamiliar faces. His social anxiety kicks in and he starts running away into the wall, confused about where he is. But Mutsumi tells her not to worry as these people are all her siblings and he is in the Yozakura house. She introduces everyone, as the white-haired girl is called Fuda, the green-haired guy is Shinzo, the pink-haired girl is Shin, the furry is named Kengo, while the buckethead is named Nana. She tells him that they are a family of spies and feels relieved after finally telling him the truth after hiding it for 10 years. He starts freaking out, but she tells her not to worry as spies are very common nowadays, and you can even book them online. He still thinks it's a prank and grabs a gun from Shinzo thinking it's a toy, but it ends up shooting, which scares the crap out of him as his whole life turns upside down in a matter of minutes. Fuda tells him that they are freelancers and actually have a 4.8-star rating on Trustpilot for completing their job. Kengo tells him that Hiza is the oldest sibling who stays the most in the limelight in the spy magazines and is responsible for boosting the image of their family so much. Fuda tells him that Hiza is the best spy in the entire family and apologizes on his behalf for endangering his life. She tells Asano that when Mutsumi was a child, there was a big accident in which she got terribly injured and Hiza took all the blame on himself. Ever since then, he has become obsessed with the job of protecting her sister no matter what. But all these years he let Asano slide because he was a childhood friend. It all changed recently when they got an online tip on Twitter about someone planning an assassination for Mutsumi. This gave Hiza the excuse to get rid of Asano as well. Suddenly an alarm starts sounding in the house, and everyone starts getting on their feet as Fuda tells him that Hiza must have entered the house to finish him off. Asano starts freaking out, but she tells him not to worry as he is probably the safest with them, but honestly tells him that even while fighting 5 against 1, their average win rate against him is only 30%. She turns towards Asano and tells him that the only way his life would truly be safe is if he marries Mutsumi right now. She explains that their household has an unbreakable rule about not killing any family member and even Hiza wouldn't break this rule. All Asano has to do is to exchange rings with Mutsumi and the marriage would be complete and they could live as a family. The word family triggers his PTSD again, and he starts breathing heavily, but Mutsumi tells Futa that it would be very cruel to Asano, who is scared of making connections with people. Futa apologies for being insensitive, and all of them start getting ready to beat Hisa up, when suddenly they notice that he has already entered the room and is sitting between them. He turns toward Shinzo and tells him that he destroyed all his traps and tells them to hand Asano over, but Futa steps up to him and grabs his tie. She starts swinging him around the air before slamming him to the ground as Shinzo uses his robot arms to pin him down and Nana takes some steroids to punch him in the face, while Kengo and Shin take Asano away with them. Unfortunately, Hisa is unhurt and uses his special move to blast both of them away while he stands up, telling them that they leave too many gaps in their attacks. Asano is stunned to see how strong these people are, while Futa tells them that she will buy them some time. She runs over to him as Hisa starts using his spider wire ability to block all her attacks before tying her up to the roof. Shin tells Kengo to hide Asano somewhere, while she takes out her phone and activates some drones that descend from the ceiling and start shooting at Hisa. Meanwhile, Tengo takes them to a different room, and together with Mutsumi, they put Asano behind a hidden picture frame. A little while later, Hisa enters the room after destroying all the drones without a single scratch on his face, only to find Mutsumi and Asano together in the room. He tells her to hand the boy over, but she starts running towards him with a gun alongside their dog. But Hisa is leagues above them and ties her up with her wires before removing her mask to reveal Tengo inside. Knowing that it's of no use, even Mutsumi reveals himself wearing Asano's disguise and tells Hisa that Asano is of no danger to her, but Hisa tells him that there is only one way he won't harm Asano, and that is if she agrees to never leave her home. This catches her off guard as Hisa starts walking towards her, telling her that she will never have friends, never have any romances, any fun, and even will lose her internet privileges, but at least this will ensure that she will stay safe forever. He hugs her as she starts crying as she knows there is no other option, but Asano, who was watching everything through a peephole, reveals himself and tells Mutsumi that she doesn't have to do this. Hisa tells him to piss off as he has no use of him anymore, but Asano shouts at Mutsumi to give her the ring as he is ready to make her his family. Mutsumi cries tears of joy as she takes out one of the rings and throws it towards Asano, who jumps forward to grab it, but to their dismay, Hisa is much faster and uses his spider wires to trap both him and the ring at the last moment. Just when Hisa thought it was finally all over, Asano shows him his tenacity and strength by powering through the wires that cut his hands to shreds, but he grabs the ring and wears it on his finger, completing the marriage and officially becoming a family member as the others watch. Mutsumi hugs him tightly, while Futa tells a distraught Hisa that now he can't hurt Asano and will also have to train him so that he can protect Mutasumi at all times. Later that night, Asano gets up to return, and even though Futa offered to drop him back home, he refuses, and decides to head home together as he thinks Hise needs more mental support right now. He lays down on his bed, looking at his ring and thinking about the crazy day he has had before drifting into a deep sleep. The next morning, he wakes up by an alarm, and the moment he turns his eyes up, he spots Hise standing on top of him with a knife in his hands. He tries to shank Asano, but he rolls away just in time to protect himself, which impresses Hise as he claims it was just a friendly test. He asks what the hell is Hise doing in his home, and he replies that this is the traditional wake-up call of the Yozakura family. Asano rightfully thinks that Hise was just trying to kill him, but Hise claims that this is all part of his training because to be a spy, he needs to sleep while basically keeping his eyes opened. He then tells him to get ready for traditional Yozakura morning exercise and uses his wires to completely tie him up in the air. Meanwhile, Mutsumi was making lunch for the day and hears Asano screams, so she rushes up to see what's happening only to find him suspended mid-air, while Hise forces his body parts to stretch. She shouts at her brother to let him down, but Hise simply looks at his watch and tells her that it's time they all left the house. He quickly grabs Mutsumi and their bags before jumping out the window as a bomb explodes inside Asano's house, blowing it to smithereens. Hise puts them down and explains that Asano's house was rigged with a bomb sometime last night. He promises to explain more about it, but tells him to get one thing in his brain. which is the main goal of the family is to protect Mutsumi at all costs. He then tells them to get inside the car, while Mutsumi helps him up. Inside the car, Hise talks with Shinzo, who found out that the bomb was rigged inside the kitchen, which means that the target of the assassination was Mutsumi. Asano is very confused, but Hise replies that information spreads very quickly in their lives, and the news about Mutsumi's marriage has spread like wildfire, and almost everyone knows about it. He is still confused and asks why would they target Mutsumi, and Hise replies that the answer to that is very simple. He claims that Mutsumi is the 10th head of the Yozakura family. Hise further elaborates about their family history, and over the years they always took part in espionage because their bloodline has a special power which gives the Yozakura family children superhuman abilities. According to him, in every generation, one of the Yozakura children are born without any superhuman abilities, and those have historically always been the head of the family. Hise claims that even though the head doesn't have any supernatural powers, they are the only one who could give birth to children with superhuman abilities. This means that without the head, the Yozakura lineage and its superhuman people will simply go extinct, and that's why Mutsumi is the legitimate head of the family, and the only person who can keep their bloodline alive, and gets a bit pissed off at the fact that such a loser ended up marrying her. Because their family is so old and famous, they have tons of enemies that want to eradicate the Yozakura family, and the best way to do it is to get rid of Mutsumi. While he was saying this, a car approaches behind them, and some people load and shoot a rocket launcher at them, which the driver manages to dodge in time. Asano gets scared, while Hise seems completely chill, while their car gets shot at by multiple machine guns. He tells him not to worry as the car is bulletproof and tells the driver to go faster. The enemies give chase and take out a heavy-powered machine gun and start shooting at the limo. While Hise calmly drinks his tea, Mutsumi tells him not to worry as their pet dog Goliath is the best driver around, which freaks him out even more, while the enemies shoot rockets at them. The sharp turns end up spilling Hise's tea, which pisses him off, so he jumps on the roof and simply uses his wires to block all the bullets while the rocket guy shoots another RPG at him, which gets utterly destroyed by his wires. After styling on them, he throws his wires and cuts the pursuing vehicles to shred, making them explode, and comes back inside as if nothing happened. He tells him that he has married Mutsumi, which means it is now his responsibility as well to protect Mutsumi at any cost. He hands Asano a gun and tells him to kill anyone who he suspects and shows him the Twitter account of the person who rigged the bomb at his house. According to Hise, he is one of the best bombers alive and is incredibly dangerous, but one flaw in him is that he is addicted to social media and basically exposes his plans himself. He tells Asano to take care of Mutsumi for the entire day as he has to attend to another job, and threatens to kill him if she even gets a scratch on her. During the pee period, he ends up getting a notification on his phone as the bomber tweets that the second bomb has been set already. He looks around and spots a shadow moving through the corridors, so he immediately heads inside towards the infirmary where the nurse asks if he wants anything, so he simply moves away. Back inside the class, he watches Mutsumi during the lunch break as she talks to her friends when suddenly he gets the notification that the third bomb has been placed as well. He looks around defeated and realizes how hard Mutsumi's life is. While he was deep in thought, the three Gus walk up to him and offer him some chocolate, which to their surprise he readily takes and eats. This shocks them as they ask what happened to him, as he wouldn't even speak to them before. Asano totally forgot about his social anxiety, but it starts creeping back in and he blacks out. He wakes up in the infirmary being overlooked by Mutsumi, who asks whether he is fine. He thinks about how nice she is and asks whether she is sure he is the right person for him. He claims that even after being childhood friends, he never knew about her family or the fact that she has to fight to survive each and every day. Hearing this, Mutsumi gives him a karate chop to the head, telling him that he is wrong and that he is the one who entered such a crazy family like his, and in truth, she always wanted to marry him. This relaxes him a bit when he suddenly spots a bomb placed on the ceiling of the room about to go off. The bomb explodes with a loud bang, destroying everything inside the room. But Asano manages to save Mutsumi by hiding beneath the couch. He realizes that the bomber is much smarter than they gave him credit for, and he was putting out updates on Twitter to distract Asano and making him focus only on Mutsumi. He removes his coat and sure enough, there is a small bomb attached to his shirt about to explode. He realizes that the bomber knew Asano would stay closeby, so he used this to his advantage and basically made a bomb out of Asano, knowing that it would definitely hit Mutsumi as well. Realizing he doesn't have much time, he decides to sacrifice himself to save Mutsumi and jumps out the window, accepting his death, but to his surprise, Hise saves him at the last moment as he hangs by the wires. Hise commends him for his actions and tells him that his job got over quickly, so he came to check on them. Asano looks at the bomb to realize that one of the wires got inside the bomb and stopped its timer, saving Asano from certain death. Hise tells Asano that they are family now and family comes first. He promises that even though he hates Asano for marrying her dear sister, he would still give his life away to make sure Asano stays safe. He pulls Asano back inside, and while playing with the bomb, he tells them that their job isn't over yet. Just then, the other siblings also arrive in the room, and Shinzo delivers a handcuffed bomber on Hise's feet. Hise ties him up with his wire alongside the bomb and throws him out into the sky, where the bomber explodes in a fantastic show of fireworks, while the Yozakura family alongside Shinzo watch it from the couch. The next morning, Asano wakes up after having a nightmare in which he watches helplessly as Mutsumi gets kidnapped. After waking up, he feels a little groggy and ends up stepping on to the tail of the doggy, who gives him a nice love bite on the arm. He comes down and is immediately patched up by Mutsumi, who apologizes for the actions of the dogs and starts playing with it very cutely. This reminds him of how sad his dream was, and to make sure it never becomes the reality, he goes up to Futa and begs her to train him so that he can become stronger. He claims that he wants to be able to protect Mutsumi from every danger, as even last time he was barely able to save her by luck and would have died if not for Hise. She tells him that he is naive if he thinks that he can become strong so quickly and shows him her strength, while explaining that she started training in all the different forms of martial arts when she was just 3 years old, and went on her first deadly mission at 6 years old. This means that even for someone with Yozakura genes, it took 3 years to master the martial arts, but it would be much longer for a normal person. She tells him that he is naive if he thinks that he can become stronger just on the basis of his emotions, but is willing to give him a chance. She asks him whether he is willing to get into the Yozakura all-out training program, which is probably the fastest way anyone can get stronger. He gets excited, but she tells him to hold his horses, as she puts the condition that he has to stay here in the Yozakura household for a complete month, and only then his real training will start. He thinks it would be super easy as he just has to stay here, but the moment he gets up, a trapdoor activates, and he only barely manages to grab the edge as he looks down to see sharp spikes beneath. Futa comes to him and claims that she forgot to tell him, but the entire Yozakura household is rigged with deadly traps for spy training, so it's not going to be easy. But if he manages to survive, she will train him further. The next morning, he wakes up to the alarm sound of the ugliest looking bird, but because he doesn't wake up in time, a bomb ends up going off inside the room. He somehow manages to get out of the smoky room, but activates another trap as a flamethrower emerges behind him and starts burning everything in its way as he tries to run down the hall. He finally reaches the breakfast table where Mutsumi tends to his wounds, and he asks how does she manage to evade all the traps. She replies that the traps don't activate for her, which surprises him, but Shin explains that the traps are controlled by a computer, and once a person is able to dodge and disable all the traps, they get accepted as a house member by the computer and get the privilege to activate or deactivate the traps. She further tells him that normally a person can probably clear all the traps in 2 years, which is a very long time, but before Asano could argue, he starts feeling a pain in his stomach. Futa looks at him and explains that all the food in this house is laced with a small amount of poison to build the tolerance against it, which won't kill them, but will definitely give them diarrhea. He immediately gets up and runs to the bathroom, only to see that it is completely locked and won't open unless and until he picks the locks and cracks all the codes. From that day on, Asano's hellish daily routine begins, and while everyone else in the family is able to shut the bird down before it could explode, Asano ends up falling victim to it once again. The fridge is covered with lasers, so people need to be careful, but it isn't a problem for Shin, who uses her drones to get what she needs, or Futa, who uses her superhuman speed to get her drinks, but Asano ends up triggering the trap, which reveals a bunch of machine guns that shoot immediately. To turn the TV on, he needs to use a gun and shoot the power button on the remote. But the recoil is way too much for him, and he ends up falling down every single time. At the lunch table, he still is unable to get used to the poison or crack the codes to the washroom, even with Mutsumi's moral support, and when he tries to take a bath. The shower is meant to teach him how to survive Russian interrogation, which he hates. The next day, he goes to school and looks like a total corpse, barely answering any questions. It turns out that he has been forced to wear a 30 kg shirt to help maintain his basic strength even while resting. After another tiring day, he tries to head back to his bedroom, but spots Mutsumi, who has slept while working on the desk. He puts a blanket on top of her, and inspired by her hard work, he goes out and starts practicing his shooting skills. Mutsumu ends up waking up and takes him inside, where she offers him some tea and tells him to take it easy as he has already protected her before. She reminds him that once when she got in high school, there were a bunch of bullies who were jealous of her popularity, so they tried to take her into the shed and cut her hair off. But he appeared at the last moment and took the scissors out of their hands. Before he began cutting his own hair, the bullies thought that he was a brain-dead psychopath and got scared away, which saved Mutsumi from getting her hair chopped off. He promises her that he will get stronger and will always stay by her side, and heads back to sleep. A couple of weeks pass by, and he has learned to finally deal with the birds, shutting it off easily, and walks down to the living room by easily dodging the laser traps before he takes the pistol and shoots the power button to turn on the TV. Shinzo commends him for his skills, but Asano replies that he still can't change channels. Just then, Shin arrives inside the room and hands Shinzo the progress report of Asano ever since he came here. Later that day, the tubhead teaches him how to escape the poison gas trap, and he is even able to survive through the basic poisoned food. But when he tires the milk, he ends up getting sick again and runs off to the washroom, only to get stuck with the codes again. Suddenly, they realize that something is wrong and find him barely conscious on the floor. Futa immediately takes him to the infirmary, where they check him out, and it turns out that he got a fever because of exhaustion. She then notices something and tears off his skin, only to reveal that he was wearing a fake bodysuit, while actually he is completely battered and bruised from the training. He didn't want Mutsumu to worry, that's why he asked the furry to make him a bodysuit while getting healed by the buckethead. She tells him that his results were extraordinary and they couldn't have been achieved without training yourself to death. She tells him to chill out and hands him a book about coding. She tells him that he needs to be on bed rest till he has completely read the book, and only then he is allowed to take part in the training again. A week passes by, and finally, he is able to crack the locks of the washroom, making everyone celebrate as he has finally passed the Yozakura House member test and now is accepted by the computer. To his horror, Shinzo takes out a 100 kg shirt, claiming that they can increase the intensity now. While Shin turns the difficulty of the traps from normal to hard, he realizes that his adventures are just getting started, as he has a long way to go before he can protect himself and Mutsumi from every danger. The next morning, Mutsumi cooks breakfast once again, while Asano enters the kitchen trying to put on her undergarments. She looks at him as if he was a freak, and tells him that he should worry about his weird fantasies and desires, as no matter how disturbing they are, she wouldn't divorce him. He claims that this is all a misunderstanding, and he just wants to practice his disguises. Suddenly, a beautiful blonde woman appears in the doorway, asking whether everything was alright. Asano doesn't know who she is, but Mutsumi immediately recognizes that it's Kengo with his disguises. He immediately starts smothering Asano, trying to weird him out, but Mutsumi tells him to knock it off and leave him alone. Just then Hise also appears in the kitchen and asks Matsumi for a goodbye kiss before he leaves, and this was too much as she simply smacks both Kengo and Hise on the head. Later that day, he meets up with Shinzo, who is about to go on a mission alone. Asano asks whether it's a dangerous mission, but he tells him that it's a low difficulty mission as he simply needs to find out information about a counterfeit money operation and it shouldn't take much time. Asano wishes him luck and leaves for the school alongside Matsumi. While walking down to their school building, a ball traveling at a high speed almost hits Asano, but without even looking he grabs the ball and then throws it back with an incredible power. Later in the afternoon, both him and Matsumi head on to the roof to have some lunch. When Matsumi tells him that he doesn't know it yet, but his strength and skills have increased a lot because of the training. He walks so silently now that people are starting to call him a ninja. After that, she asks whether he is free after school today as she needs some help with her work. Asano obviously agrees and heads back home, where she sits down on her desk and starts stamping a horde of paperwork while telling Asano what to do, as he brings more and more documents, which she analyzes at a super high speed, and also finds errors and other problems in them. She makes Asano her paw and tells him to send emails to some of the investors to increase their stocks, while telling Asano to ignore the forged divorce papers that Hise has created to try and break their marriage. While shuffling through the files, she notices that one of the reports by Kengo seems to be incomplete, and because he has done this several times before, she gets pissed and takes Asano into Kengo's room. The room is completely filled with his clothes to the brim where they can't even see anything. Matsumi tells him to come out, and he magically appears on top of his clothes mound, while Matsumi tells him to complete his report and submit it immediately. Kengo doesn't take her seriously and simply starts eating his sushi, while telling Matsumi to stop acting like a grandmother. This pisses her off, and she grabs her handcuffs to lay down some Yazakura-style punishment. Kengo realizes that he is in danger and jumps out of the mound to escape the room. Thanks to his training, Asano has become faster and blocks his way immediately. But Kengo is smarter and forces him to drop his guard by becoming Matsumi. He then runs past him outside, while an angry Matsumi activates the hibernation mode of the house to completely bar it from the outside world as giant walls are erupted all around the house. She tells Asano that there is no way of escaping this house once this mode is activated. Meanwhile, Shinzo crawls through the air vents as he spots the giant operation being run by a millionaire who has already put 60% of his counterfeit currency in circulation. He travels through the ducts and realizes that these people are working with a highly intelligent person who designed all these safety measures. He puts on his Apple Vision Pro, and unlike in real life, his glasses are actually useful as he is able to see through the containers to find a bunch of fake money. He drops down the hatch to find a secret case, which he is able to hack, and gets the framed picture of a note, which might be very important. Before he could do anything though, an alarm is sounded and he starts running away. Back at the Yazakura house, Matsumi starts checking all their rooms one by one. She goes into her room where she uses an infrared device to check for his signs, but doesn't find anything. Asano is awed at the amount of hobbies she has, as he looks at the painting she recently made. They then head over to Shin's room, who is busy playing a physical game which she is not very good at. They then head over to the Buckethead's room, who tells them that he will explode Kingo if he sees him. They finally head over to Hise's room, only to find the entire room covered with Matsumi's pictures. Asano wonders whether Kingo could have escaped, but Matsumi tells him that it's impossible with the house on lockdown. Suddenly, all the other siblings meet up with Matsumi and Asano asking whether they were able to find Kengo. When suddenly Asano hears something and turns around to see Kengo's face on Mona Lisa, as it turns out that he was hiding in the picture frame. Kengo immediately runs away and around a corner, while Asano follows him, but suddenly screams as he falls down. Matsumi runs over to check on him, and finds him on the ground rubbing his head, as he claims that Kengi threw the frame at him and ran inside the cavity in the wall. Matsumi shouts loudly, claiming that he must have found a way out of the lockdown made, and angrily makes her way back to Kengo's room, claiming that she will remove the lockdown soon. As soon as Asano enters the room though, she immediately handcuffs him and claims that she is not as stupid and knows that Kengo is impersonating Asano right now. She claims that there is no way to escape the lockdown, so Kengo must have switched places with Asano and hid him, in the hopes that Matsumi will release the lockdown, after which he could run away. Kengo accepts his defeat and removes the mask, and together they start looking for the paperwork she needed. Later that day, Asano eats the curry made by Matsumi, which is very tasty, so he asks for the secret ingredient, and Matsumi replies that it's cyanide. Asano immediately starts feeling sick, and excuses himself to pick up a call. He picks the phone only to find Shinzo on the other end, screaming at Matsumi for help. They get on a video call and Shinzo cries that he ended up getting in a gunfight, but he didn't expect so many guys, and now all his bullets are over, and he has no weapons. She tells Asano that Shinzo is an extremely good spy, but he only depends on his weapons, and if he doesn't have a weapon, he becomes a super big wimp. She asks whether Asano can take his weapons to him, and he immediately agrees. He dresses up and carries a small bag as he enters the highly secure building and starts walking through the corridors. Unfortunately, he is not fast enough and gets caught by a guard who puts a gun to his head.